She thought it was the worst day of her life. Her classmates laughed, her teachers turned their eyes away, and the cruelest of them all decided to send her off like she was a problem that needed fixing. They told her she'd spend her summer with a poor farmer, out in the middle of nowhere. It was meant as punishment, for being different. For being overweight. For being someone the world didn't know how to love, but what they didn't realize was this: sometimes life sends us to the very place we need to be. And sometimes, kindness comes from where you least expect it. Before we dive into this powerful story, take a moment to subscribe to our channel, TRUTHLINES USA. Hit the like button if you believe kindness has the power to change lives, and leave a comment below to share your own story of unexpected kindness. Your support helps us keep sharing these moving stories with the world. Her name was Emily. She was 15 years old, living in a small Midwestern town, where everyone seemed to know everyone's business. And everyone knew Emily as the big girl. It didn't matter that she loved books, that she sketched flowers in her notebooks, or that she had a laugh that could light up a room. What people saw first, and sometimes all they chose to see, was her weight. By her sophomore year of high school, the bullying had become unbearable. Kids called her names in the hallway. They whispered cruel jokes behind her back, sometimes right in front of her. Teachers rarely intervened. Even some family members made remarks, suggesting she should do something about it. The final straw came during the last week of school. A group project went badly, and instead of owning up to their mistakes, the other kids pointed fingers at Emily. They said she was lazy, that she didn't pull her weight, pun intended. The principal, tired of dealing with disruptions, decided Emily needed structure. And so, with a phone call, arrangements were made for her to spend the summer helping out an old farmer on the edge of town. His name was Mr. Thompson. Emily had never met him. Rumor had it he was poor, living off scraps of land nobody wanted anymore. Some kids joked that he lived with pigs and smelled like them too. Others claimed he was mean, strict, and had no patience for city kids. When Emily's mom dropped her off at the dusty gravel driveway, her stomach twisted with dread. The farmhouse looked weathered, its paint faded by decades of sun. Chickens pecked at the dirt, and an old barn leaned as though it might collapse. "This is your punishment," her mom muttered, not unkindly, but without a trace of warmth either. "Maybe this will toughen you up." Emily nodded, fighting tears. She dragged her suitcase toward the porch, where Mr. Thompson waited. He was tall, with a sun-worn face and calloused hands. He didn't smile, but his eyes, Emily noticed, weren't harsh. They were tired, maybe, but kind. "Emily, is it?" he asked. She nodded. "Well, come on in. You'll earn your keep here, but don't worry, I don't bite." The first few days were grueling. Emily woke before sunrise, helped gather eggs, and carried buckets of feed. Her arms ached, her back burned, and sweat rolled down her face. She felt clumsy and slow, convinced Mr. Thompson must be regretting taking her in, but every time she stumbled, he was patient. He didn't laugh. He didn't scold. He simply showed her again. "You'll get stronger," he'd say. "Just give it time." At meals, he served her hearty portions without judgment: fresh vegetables from the garden, cornbread from scratch, and fruit pies that melted in her mouth. Unlike everyone else in her life, he never mentioned her size, and slowly, something inside Emily began to shift. One hot afternoon, as they rested under the shade of a giant oak, Emily finally asked, "Why are you letting me stay here? I mean, the school said you didn't have much. And I'm not exactly helpful." Mr. Thompson chuckled softly. "Who told you I don't have much?" Emily shrugged. "Everyone. They said you're just some poor farmer." For the first time, he smiled a wide, knowing smile. "Let me show you something." He led her past the barn, across a wide pasture, and then up a small hill. As they crested the top, Emily gasped. Stretching before her was not a patch of land, but thousands of acres, rolling fields of corn and soybeans, neat rows that disappeared into the horizon. Tractors rumbled in the distance. Workers waved as they passed by. Emily turned to him, eyes wide. "This is all yours?" He nodded. "Every bit of it. Been in my family for generations. People in town like to make up stories. Maybe it makes them feel better to think I'm poor. But I don't worry about what folks say." For a long moment, Emily was silent. Then she whispered, "Why didn't you correct them? Why let them think you had nothing?" Mr. Thompson leaned on his cane. Because having things doesn't matter as much as having character. Kindness, patience, love, those are worth more than land or money. And sometimes, people who seem to have the least are the ones who have the most to give. That night, Emily lay awake, thinking about his words. She realized she'd spent so much of her life defined by what others said about her. By her size. By cruel jokes. By punishments she didn't deserve, but here, on this farm, she wasn't the big girl. She was simply Emily. Someone capable of learning, working, laughing, and even making mistakes without being shamed. The summer rolled on. Emily grew stronger, both physically and emotionally. She laughed more, sang while she worked, and discovered she had a knack for baking. She even learned to drive a tractor, much to her delight. Mr. Thompson never lectured her about her weight, but he showed her the joy of moving her body with purpose, of eating food grown with love, of treating herself with gentleness. One evening, as they watched fireflies dance across the fields, Emily asked, "Why are you so kind to me?" He thought for a moment. Because kindness was once shown to me when I least deserved it. A long time ago, when I was a boy about your age, I was angry and bitter. Someone chose to be kind instead of cruel. It changed my life. Now, I try to pass it on. By the time summer ended, Emily didn't want to leave. She felt at home on the farm. She hugged Mr. Thompson tightly on that last morning, tears running down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything." He patted her shoulder gently. "Remember, Emily, don't let the world tell you who you are. You're worth more than their words. And whenever you can, choose kindness. It's the strongest seed you'll ever plant." When Emily returned to school in the fall, the bullies were still there. The whispers hadn't vanished. But something inside her had changed. She walked taller. She smiled more. And when she saw another girl being teased, she stepped in, not with anger, but with kindness. Because she knew what it felt like to be on the receiving end of cruelty. And she knew how powerful it was when someone chose compassion instead. Years later, Emily would often visit Mr. Thompson, helping him with harvests and sharing long conversations on the porch. She went on to become a teacher, shaping young lives with the same kindness that had once rescued her, and whenever people asked about her summers on the farm, she would smile and say, "They thought they were punishing me. But it was the greatest gift I ever received." Because sometimes, kindness doesn't just soften the edges of our pain. It transforms it into strength, into hope, into love that ripples outward, touching lives we may never even see. So remember this, kindness is never wasted. The smallest act, a gentle word, a patient smile, a helping hand, can change someone's entire world. Be that kindness. Plant those seeds. And watch how beautifully they grow.